All right. We jump to the panel session now. And that's a panel session. It's what you call the high-tech panel session, and you have a lineup of, high-tech ladies and gentlemen to handle this panel session. All right, so I'll start by welcoming the moderator of this session, Manager, Enterprise Technology and Performance, Deloitte, Romanus Eke. Please a round of applause for him. All right, my friend and brother, Nkem Weke, Innovation Lead, Microsoft Engineering. Join us. A round of applause for him as well. Nkem is always looking for the next innovation to support. All right, Timbo Drayson, CEO and co-founder, Oki. Can you hear me online?
I can hear you great. It's actually okay, hi.
Oh, well, okay. All right, thanks. Thanks for the correction. All right, Toju Duke, AI Program Manager, Google. Can you hear me, Toju?
Hi, yes, I can.
All right, Abdulrahman Faye, Chief Data Officer, Access Bank. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Do you hear me as well?
Loud and clear. Michael Natstush, Chief Science Officer, Prudential PLC. Did I get it correctly?
Perfect.
All right, awesome, Michael. All right, I'll hand you all over to Romanus. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining what promises to be an enlightening panel discussion. I'm Romanus Ifani, Eke. I happen to be a success-driven manager with Deloitte. So I help Deloitte drive their cloud and infrastructure business. So we help customers shape their digital transformation strategies so that they can realize business value very quickly. So today I've got a fantastic panel, and with me is Tuju Duke. She happens to be AI program manager at Google. And I've also got other panelists as they've also been introduced. So I wouldn't really waste much time. So we'll be diving straight into the questions. But before I do that, I know most of them, they have been really, working in a lot of initiatives, trying to build different solutions that solve significant problems. So I will first of all start with Toju. Could you please maybe perhaps give 2 to 3 minutes overview of what you've been doing at Google or what other things you've been doing trying to innovate?
Cool, thank you. And hi, everyone. So I'm based in Dublin, in Ireland. I've worked for Google for about 8 years. And before Google, I was working for not-for-profit organizations in marketing. During my time in Google, I've worked as a product lead, driving some of the Google's online advertising solutions called Travel, one of the travel products. On the flip side of it, I went into AI a couple of years ago. I'm currently working as a responsible AI program manager at Google. And basically, what responsible AI means is just driving some responsible AI frameworks across AI, making sure that the AI systems that are being built today do not drive any further harm to individuals or people in society. Outside Google, quite busy as well. I'm a manager in Women in AI in Ireland. And what we're trying to do is just drive some further gender diversity in AI, in the world of tech and AI. I was recently leading Black and Brilliant Solutions, which was a group that started recently. I was leading that on AI. I'm a business advisor, a mentor, and I'm currently leading a group on social media, a women's group for women's empowerment.
Yeah, thank you so much. Quite a lot of activities you've got, and I can see you are driving a lot of initiatives. So to you, Timbo, could you please tell us what you've been doing? and what maybe your role currently is.
Great. So hi, everyone, and thanks for having me. I'm Timbo Drayson, one of the co-founders and CEO of OK Hi. Previously, I was a product manager at Google, where I was there for 7 years working on a few different products and services. And I actually took a product called Chromecast from idea to launch. I'm normally based in between Kenya and Nigeria, which are the key markets where my business, OK Hi, operates. So our mission at OK Hi is to enable the 4 billion people in the world who don't have a physical address to be included. What we see is that over half the world don't have an address, which costs the world's economy over $200 billion a year. And so we've created a digital addressing solution that were just, and actually just launched in Nigeria a couple of weeks ago. And traditionally, we sort of, over the last 5 years, built our products using, I suppose, basic technical algorithms, etc. And we are now, having invested a lot over the last couple of years, launching our AI-powered address verification service. And I ultimately believe that this is something that can unlock a huge amount of economic power across Nigeria, Africa, and all the emerging markets in the world.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that insight. I see you already leveraging AI in building smart addressing solution, and you're already making investment in that regard. That's very awesome. So, Nkemweke, could you please give us a bit of background of what you've been doing and what your current role at Africa Development Center is?
Okay, thank you very much, Romanos. So I lead innovations for the Microsoft engineering team, which is also called the Africa Development Center. We like to call ourselves a startup. We're 2 years old. It's an initiative that was that came into the continent because we saw that there are opportunities to begin to raise engineers that will do the same level of work that other people globally are doing as well. And we want to be able to take advantage of technologies like AI, mixed reality, robotics, to begin to build solutions that will talk to areas of, health, energy, fintech, which, if you agree with me, are pivotal to the growth of our region in Africa. What's also important to us at the ADC is partnering with government, and I'm happy we have representatives of government here. We also want to partner with people in academia. We also want to partner with, incubators and the huge tech ecosystem, within our region. So as leading innovations for the engineering team, part of the remit of my role basically is to look out for the next best product that Microsoft is going to build. And that basically has to do with lots of engagement, lots of evangelism, lots of orchestration to basically, find out, which we would pick and how. So the 3 pillars of what we do basically for the ADC for us is scaling, secondly is innovation, and thirdly is partnerships. And, working, with associations and groups like this, we hope that very soon we should be coming out with something that has been ideated or discovered locally here, but importantly as well, we want it to, be global. So anything that is built here definitely should be used by somebody in Kathmandu or somebody in Belarus or so. That's the story we want to tell from the Africa Development Center. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Because when you said you want to build a local solution that can be exported, I felt overjoyed. And I believe we can achieve that. So that's a very wonderful, should I call it, goal that I believe we'll be able to really achieve. So I would also want to have Dr. Abraman Faye also give us more insight into what he's been doing at Access Bank.
Okay, thank you. Do you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thanks for this opportunity you are giving me here to share with you my background. I just joined Access Bank about 1 year back as a new Chief Data Officer of the group, covering end-to-end data and analytics initiatives and teams here, from data governance to AI and machine learning to CRM, data engineering, and visualization. So we have a lot of initiatives here to help really drive the company and move it to become a data-driven company. And before that, I'm coming from Switzerland, where I was covering for another bank as the executive director for data management and artificial intelligence. And prior to that, I was coming also from Microsoft and SAP, seeing here some of my friends, colleagues, and competitors, where I was heading for EMEA, all the data and AI practice, and in Canada as well. So recently, happy to join Nigeria to try to have the first experience in Africa, trying to see how we can leverage all those great things that we've achieved already for other European and North American countries.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks. The last one on the list is Michael Natosh. Could you please give us a bit of your background?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. And I apologize, I can't be with you in person. I'm actually very jealous that I can't be there. Nevertheless, I'll be with you in spirit. So my name is Michael. I'm the Chief Science Officer at Prudential. We're a large global insurance company. We focus primarily on life and health insurance. We are very strong in Asia. We're pretty much #1 in Asia. And we are present in 8 countries in Africa as well. The main part of my job is to be responsible for the deployment of machine learning and AI across all our business, both the traditional insurance business, as well as the new customer-facing app that we've launched about 18 months or so ago, called Pulse. And that's available now, I believe, in 15 markets, had about 30 million downloads in the course of the last year, and is there to be really our presence in our customers' hands to help our customers live healthier and longer lives. So that's that gives AI also a special purpose. AI in this case is there to help understand who the user really is and help them in as personalized a manner as possible to that goal of living a longer and healthier life. I think that's all from me for a brief introduction. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I think at this stage, we can see that we have the right panelists. So now we'll be looking at how can we make emerging technologies to become as ordinary as our mobile telephones. So I'll be going straight forward to ask Tuju, could you please tell us the current state of adoption of all these emerging technologies like AI and cloud within Africa? What's the current adoption rate?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'll just give a very small disclaimer. I'm talking like an outsider because I'm not currently based in Africa, but from my observations on the other side of the pond, it's quite low. But overall, I'll start off with a history of like AI adoption and a little bit on cloud and where we are at now. So AI, the term AI was coined in 1956, many years ago, and it's gone through a lot of hoops and troughs. Right now, AI is a fast emerging technology. We've had AI winters where people really believed in AI and came up with so many predictions that did not happen and investment was pulled out. Right now, we're not going through an AI winter. So across the world, AI adoption is increasing, and research actually shows that by 2030, AI should contribute about 15.7 trillion to the GDP globally. So there's a lot of potential in AI across the different countries in the West. We have between US, Australia, UK, and China leading on AI technology. So right now, we're still trying to convince small, medium enterprises and companies that AI is important, for example. And I'll hone in on AI because I'm more of an AI expert than cloud. Now, drilling down to Africa, we know it's one of the developing continents in the world. And I know sometimes we don't like to hear that, but it's true. And even when it comes to digital, we're behind in digital. AI, like I just mentioned, is an emerging technology, but it's quickly getting adopted. Africa is lagging behind, and we know that. That said, we have a few companies like, fintech, in the fintech industry. We have Paystack that was recently launched. I believe they're using AI technologies for their offerings. We also have in agriculture, in the industry, we have a company called My Intelligent Machines, led by Abdoulaye Diallo, and he's using machine learning and AI to predict his livestock needs, and with the aim to help livestock in general. There are lots of ideas, but speaking with people, part of my mentoring, you speak with young people who are interested in machine learning and AI. They don't know how to get in, but they do believe that it could help with agriculture, it could help with fintech. For healthcare, it's key. And I know Michael mentioned a little bit on healthcare, but AI is key for healthcare, especially in Nigeria and in Africa, where we lose a lot of lives. People just die unnecessarily. It's not like the education is not there. It's not like we don't have fully trained doctors or people in the healthcare sector. But if we use AI, it could help with the triage process. It could help with processing, going through your patients. It could help with drug discovery. When we think about AI and data, Black people and people in Africa, they're really behind in the data. And, sometimes you come out crying, Black people are not being prioritized in the hospitals over here, or they misdiagnosed me. I had skin cancer, but it told me something else. And part of it is because we're behind. So we're not in the forefront providing this data to organizations that are driving in these different industries and in these different areas.
Thank you so much. I can see that AI has got a lot of applications. So that brings me right to the next question. Timbo, so what are the practical applications of AI? And what impact can it have on African economy, for example?
That's a great and very big question. Just before answering that, I just want to add around kind of where we're at today on AI. And there's an interesting anecdote. Right now, we are really at the infancy of where AI and the impact that it has on the world is today. When I was at Google, I remember in 2010, so just over 10 years ago, Eric Schmidt, CEO at the time, stood up and said that there would be a time very soon when the whole company would be developing for mobile first applications. And that seemed completely crazy at the time because the whole company was building applications for the desktop. Mobile was really just a small numbers in everyone's kind of data charts. And and everyone actually thought it was kind of crazy thing to say. Now, of course, 10 years later, that seems ridiculous. And we all live in this mobile first world. And by default, everyone kind of builds applications for the mobile first. And I think it's interesting that just a few years ago, Sundar Pichai, the current CEO of Google, stood up and said, AI will and needs to be first, and switched the whole company to really focus on that in the same way Eric Schmidt did on mobile. And I think what we are starting to see, and it's great that this conversation is happening, but I don't think any of us really realize quite how quickly everything is accelerating. Now, I just want to give a bit of a background because there are really three components to artificial intelligence that make artificial intelligence work. The first is data, and it needs to have essentially data to be able to build on. The second is essentially sort of the algorithms and processing of that data. And then the third is the computational power to manage that processing of the data. Now, each one of those is growing at an exponential rate. And interestingly, each one of those is actually being driven by AI itself. So for example, AI is creating more data to be able to power itself. AI is creating the algorithms that are much better than any human being could create. And AI is now actually creating computer chips and processing power that was much better than humans could create. So we're now in this cycle, and we're really just at this very, very start of what I think is going to be an extremely steep curve. And very, very quickly, in the matter of years, single-digit years, by default, everything is going to be powered by AI. And I think what we see today is it's touching a few elements of our lives. And it's great that we've got, whether it's Access Bank or Prudential, or even what we're doing at OK High, there are parts of people's lives that probably be just being touched by AI. And I think very quickly, and if we just project another 10 years and we'll look back at this, everything will be, in terms of our lives, will be powered by AI. And that obviously has a lot of risks and can also become quite a scary conversation, but it's also a huge amount of opportunity. And so to answer your question around, what is the potential and what is the impact and where can it have? I mean, it's not really a question of where. It will be everywhere, and it will touch all aspects of our lives. And I think what is a huge opportunity in Africa, one of my co-founders, who's Kenyan, has a great saying that he says is like, being in Africa, we're blessed to have all these problems. And that's like a true entrepreneur speaking. And there is nothing more powerful than being able to leverage AI to solve the problems that exist in the world today, not least in Africa. And I think what we're seeing is obviously a huge investment in AI in some of the more, I suppose, developed and especially from a technology perspective, countries. And I think what we have to make sure we do in Africa is make sure that we're applying the technology to solve the local problems that exist that perhaps the rest of the world aren't necessarily working on. So those are my thoughts around, I suppose, AI, how fast it's moving, and the impact that it will have on everyday lives and economy.
Okay, thanks for that. And that's, given that AI has a lot of potential and would always create real value for Africa. And Kim, I would want to find out, from innovation perspective, what opportunities exist that African economy or Nigeria, for example, can leverage all these emerging technologies like AI, quantum, and cloud computing to make the economy thrive?
So I think I'd give a winding answer, if I should use that word. I'd like to always share my perspective of what innovation is. I kind of think it's a word that has been, it's more like a fad in town, and everybody uses innovation hub, innovation this, innovation solution. And it doesn't take anything away from it, but I'd like to, in my own way, say I look at innovation as something that is new. I look at innovation as something that is done or has been implemented. And I look at innovation as something that has value. When you put those three together and you look at the startup ecosystem or so, I kind of feel, and I'm always comfortable being the black sheep, I kind of feel that lots of the things that we see within our environment is more like a copy of something that probably exists in the Western world. And again, it doesn't take away the hard work the young men and women who have this, startups have done. Obviously, we see the money they have raised, we see valuations, unicorns and the rest, which is very good. And if you merge it side by side today we live in what we call the fourth industrial revolution. We talk about digitization and the rest. I hardly see people who find out or who ask where were we as Africa between Industrial Revolution 1 and Revolution 3. Now we've jumped into 4. And we tout this lovely word we call leapfrogging, because interestingly, we have, ubiquity of hardware where obviously, like somebody mentioned, the mobile phone, a young person would buy a mobile phone before he buys a laptop. A young person will probably buy 2 mobile phones before he buys a tablet. And you can practically do almost everything on your mobile phone, which is lovely and talks to cloud computing, like you mentioned. Again, the penetration of internet is coming. It's not the best, but it's there. But the thing is, how do you leapfrog into quantum computing? You can't leapfrog your way into everything. Quantum computing came from the likes of physics, right? AI and robotics came, from computer science and statistics and the rest. And yes, it's possible to innovate, but we need to look at it in the context of, where we are as a region. And we need to begin to ask those centric questions to say, where do we want to be? How do we want to get addressed? So I think it's very possible for us to innovate, but we need to also look at the foundational part of things. If we have, for example, kids who are getting into primary schools or early years and they're not being taught from a STEM point of view, then that is very, very bad, because the best we can do is basically copy. So we need to look at it that way. We need to continue having more discussions like this, because as we discuss, we ideate, we look at challenges, and we come up with possible solutions that we can call innovative. We have the raw talent and skill as a people, as Africa, and that's why you see on some platforms you see a young person who has probably built something that looks like a car and is very ingenious, right? But that person has not considered what happens if a blind person is going to use this thing. You don't think about that. What happens if I run this car at 100 kilometers per hour? You'd probably be dead also, right? And these things talk to the steps to which you look at the problem or probably want to address a solution. So it's important that while we look at the promise or the possibility of innovation, we need to also think about research and development. We're not a people who do research and development. For everybody in this room, think about your primary school days, secondary school, university. How much research do you do, even as a country as well, right? So while we're also raising money for startups, I think we should start also raising money for people in the R&D to look at what is, centric to us as a country or as a people, and begin to push it out to see how we can provide solutions. But innovation is always possible, but we need to take methodical steps to get there.
Okay, so since you say we need to at least take things one step at a time, so are there concerns you have around all these emerging technologies?
Well, I have concerns in that if you look at the field of AI, it's more like when they say money takes the character, the behavior of whoever it's in his hand, right? And even as Microsoft, we have programs where you talk about AI for good and hack for good also. These are all good technologies, but it depends on who basically handles it. And that's why we need to build for our future, build for where we are and where we want to go to. These technologies are good. If you look at quantum computing in the area of fintech, for example, it's going to revolutionize things like blockchain and cryptocurrency. So we need to look into it on how to make it better, or how to probably even tailor it to our own environment. So for me, it's more of the good than the bad, but I'm more eager to see how we will walk our steps, again, like I said, methodically, as Africa or as Nigeria, into what we want our future to be, looking at these, emerging technologies that is changing, the world as we see it today.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. So I will come to you, Dr. Faye. Based on what Kim has highlighted, what are other use cases that you see that we can leverage as a people and see how we can build a digital economy for Africa?
Okay, thanks for the question. But I think before talking about use cases, there are two main questions, in my opinion, that needs to be addressed from an economy perspective. The first one is, as a company, how can I grow my business and increase my market share and revenues? The second one is, what are the challenges I'm facing and how can I address those challenges? Now, depending on the industry, the type of organization or company we are considering here, the response to those questions may be quite different, but those responses are what will drive the identification of compelling and valuable use cases for your business or activity. If you take, for example, of retail banking industry, where I'm coming from today, the reasoning is the same for all other industry, of course. To grow my business, I need to have happy and loyal customers that transact more and more with me, that trust me enough to give me their deposit, that take my loans, that buy my products and services through my platforms, right? It's quite simple. Now, getting happy and loyal customers, this is one of the use cases to be addressed using AI and machine learning, like customer segmentation, customer behavior analysis, or customer churn retention, meaning here identifying who are the most likely customer who may leave me, who may go to the competition. How can I better understand my customers' interaction with me, which kind of product and service he may be more interested, all that are translated into concrete use cases. How to make my customer transact more? Again, AI and machine learning here to help me. And typical example of use cases can be product recommendation, where we predict what are the products or services that the customer is more likely to adopt, right? Another use cases here can be customer lifetime value prediction. When I sell my product and services, what is the value, the revenue I can get, I can predict out of it. And based on that, I can segment better my customer and focus on the most highly valuable ones. All these are examples of use case. I make some loans, so I need to know who I should be targeting in my campaigns for adopting my loans. And machine learning, again, helps me here through, let's say, use cases like prediction of likelihood to default a loan, right? Where I can identify who is more likely to default a loan. And then I can focus on the less likely to default in my campaigns, right? Another use cases. I sell my product. One of the question here is, what is the optimal price for my product? Optimal in the sense of meet my, let's say, revenue target or sales target. Another use case is here called price optimization. So what I mean here is that during all the lifetime of your journey with your customers, the people you are interacting with, we can very easily identify some compelling use cases to better drive your activities, your business. Now, that being said, there are a couple of considerations here. Where cloud is playing a key role is some of the things we need to pay some attention. It's playing a big role in delivering those use cases in the sense that it helps store and process efficiently huge amount of data I'm dealing with, and also scaling up very quickly is infrastructure I'm using to process those use cases, to deliver those use cases. It also provides some softwares and tools natively to build those use cases and better govern my data, right? This is more or less what I can say. In terms of challenges, you need also, if you focus on any of your challenges, like, for example, how can I make sure that I reduce my cost? Here again, AI use cases can be identified very easily. So basically that's it. We have a lot of AI use cases in all over our journey with our customers and our day-to-day. The challenge is how to identify them, how to find the right solutions, the right people to implement it.
Thanks. I can see we have got so many use cases that all these emerging technologies can really fulfill. So I would want to also find out from you, I know that data is central to all this. So based on the data that Africa holds today, how can can we leverage that to build the kind of future we want as Africans?
Yes, that's a great one. And I think that's really is a key question we need collectively to focus on in this kind of discussion we have. What is clear is that in today's modern business, data is a key enterprise asset, right? Required to make strategic decisions. I think there is no doubt about it. All previous presenters clearly articulated that. And this is true for all industries, in particular in the financial sector, where multiple systems, application, and so on are in place to drive our day-to-day activities. So we are producing more and more data, right? When interacting between us, when interacting with our organization, when interacting with our customers, then it's important that we properly capture and store that data, being on-premise or in the cloud, right? That we process it, we govern it. This is really key. We just heard about the Nigerian regulations, rules that are being more and more driving our data governance journey. And how also can we get inside of those data through compelling use cases like the ones I've presented before. The realization of any of the value-driven use cases is clearly based on data, without which nothing is possible, right? But also around having the right technologies platform, and more importantly, the enabled people, because everything turns around the people who are well armed to drive our journey to become a data-driven organization, right? So my last word about data and the value and positioning and it can have for Africa. Let's look at a couple of well-known market analysis related to the role of data in our digital information journey, right? PwC recently claims that highly data-driven companies are 3 times more likely to report significant improvement in decision-making. McKinsey shows clearly larger growth in EBITDA earnings for data-driven companies compared to other companies. This research also points out that companies who are data-driven are more productive. And last survey that I remember here coming from the Economist Intelligence Unit clearly showed that strong correlation between organization financial performance and the use of data. So what I mean here through those examples is data is at the heart really of all our activities. We as African, we need to be more and more aware of it and see how we can leverage it to make our business and to survive, to be to the next level.
Thank you. Michael, we'll come to you now because we also talk about emerging economy. So your own experience, how can we leverage these technologies that we've been talking about today to building a digital economy that will really emerge from what we have or what we know as emerging economy today?
Thank you for this question. And let me just say that it's such a great joy to listening to my fellow panelists speaking so far. And a lot of the things that were said so far really, truly resonate with me. I really like what Tojo said in the beginning around healthcare being so crucially dependent on AI to progress further. And I really liked Timbo's expression that we are blessed by challenges. That I think is in itself very inspiring. And the last point also by Dr. Faye about the value of data is really important. And let me try and weave those 3 themes, sort of the importance of AI for healthcare, being blessed by challenges, and the importance of data into one anecdote from my side, where these 3 things sort of coincided and have shaped my thinking about how technology can make a big impact in the economic development of our societies. So take a simple example, and it relates back to something that Tojo said. When we look at the availability of medical doctors across the world, you have places like the UK. So I'm right now in London. I'm looking out of my window and I can see London in front of me. And in the UK, we're very lucky. We have almost 30 medical doctors per 10,000 population. In Singapore, where we're #1 life insurer, we're also very lucky. We have 24 medical doctors per 10,000 population. In our operations, my colleagues in our operations in Nigeria, though, you and my colleagues there find it much harder because it's only 3.8 medical doctors per 10,000 population. And then when we go to some of the countries where we operate, like Uganda and Zambia, you're below 1 medical doctor per 10,000 population. So what Tojo said, what about triage and all these kind of things? How can we do that? And clearly, obviously, we all know that it's this device that sits in our pockets that's so crucially important. And yes, a problem in Africa is still a lot of the population is on the feature phones, but that's a question of time. So I'm not so worried about that. What I am worried about is, though, when we try and apply AI to medical problems or medical questions. So this is where I come to my anecdote. So for one of the tasks I tried to take on over the last couple of years at Prudential was, for instance, to make underwriting of insurance much easier, take out the friction for the customer to take on insurance much more easily. So one of the things that goes through your mind when you try and think about this, you try and think about, okay, what are actually the big risks that what are the risk factors that our customers come to us with that we need to look out for in underwriting? It turns out the majority of the risk comes down to just 5 factors. The #1 factor is how old you are. The second one is your gender. The third one, your BMI, sadly, because mine is high, and I'm old, so and I'm male. All those 3 things are bad. The fourth one is whether you smoke or not. I'm not going to comment on that. And then the 5th one is where you are, your location. Now, it turns out that if you think about it, all those 5 factors, age, gender, BMI, smoking status, location, you can try and read off a selfie that you take on your phone. There's lots of papers published that correlate age with certain features in your face. Gender is very well established. Even BMI, smoking status is revealed by the patterns of wrinkles around your mouth. And location is very easy because that's already part of the embedded information. So we took on some of the pre-trained models that we could find, and we just did a simple prototype internally. And the simplest thing was I took my own team. We call ourselves the AI Center of Excellence at Prudential. So I took the people in my team and asked them voluntarily, of course, to take pictures and see how well that relates to the outcome that comes from the model. And it turns out that for people who kind of look like me, old, sort of white guys, gray-haired, old white guys, the result was pretty good. It was surprisingly accurate on all those factors. However, those team members that I have, so I have team members in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and Singapore, for instance, all their ages were underestimated. So I had people in their 30s who came up as being in their late teens or early 20s, for instance. Now, that's not very good if you try and sell life insurance and the premium increases with age. But more importantly, actually, what does it mean? Why is it for my Chinese colleagues or my ethnically Chinese colleagues did the model not work? Well, it's because we used a pre-trained model, and the pre-trained model was trained by people in the US. And the Asian population in the US is sizable, but in a percentage basis, relatively small. So really, what we had to do when we launched this as a product in Thailand, what we had to do before we launched in Thailand, we took our own training data. So we collected, again, voluntarily, 9,000 different selfie images, labeled selfie images, where people gave us various aspects of their face, and obviously their height and their weight and their age and their gender and their smoking status. So that was hard work that we had to go through. It was really tedious, but it's very rewarding because we now have a model that is actually faithful to the population in Thailand. And I think the same is true when I look at the various countries going all the way from north through sub-Saharan down to the south of Africa. We all have different facial features. We all have different aspects of what we look like. And one of the key challenges is to have Africa-specific training data, where we have the kind of skin types, the facial expressions, the emotions, if you want, the typical, what is a standard range in Nigeria might very well differ from a standard range in Egypt or in a place like Uganda. So having the locally specific training data is a really important thing. And if we want to jumpstart the use of technology, advanced technology, especially things like AI, having things like that is really important. But then I also think about, for instance, one of the Kenya is an interesting tech hub, not just because of M-Pesa, but also it happens to be now the location with the single largest concentration of data labelers. So those are people who are given pictures as a job, and they need to say, in this picture, I can see a table and I can see a person and maybe I can see a car or whatever it is. It's the kind of capture type labeling that we have to give when we want to sign up on websites to certify that we're not a robot. And Kenya has made this industry its own. And that gives me a lot of hope. That gives me hope that there's an African AI industry emerging. There's a great need for African-specific training data. And once we put all these things together with the entrepreneurial spirit, and as Timbu said, being blessed by challenges, applying all this data and all this spirit to the challenges that we have, I can really truly see a great future for AI in Nigeria and beyond. And I find that amazingly exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Very insightful. So I would like to take the final comments from the panelists. Back to you, Tochu. Could you please give your final comments?
Yeah, thank you. This is really inspiring, and I just love hearing from everyone here. It's got my brain thinking more about solutions, and I'll hone in a little bit on what Michael said in terms of training data. What are the solutions that we'd like to achieve as a continent, as a country? Like, we have so many experts in this room right now. We have so much talent in Nigeria and outside, for example. Why don't we hone in on these talents? Start a consortium on AI. Start having these conversations a bit more. Start thinking about the problems and the solutions that we want to achieve. Why don't we move with a social evolution? Why can't we have a minister in digital, a digital minister or a tech minister? Why do we have to stick to the same old ministers we've had since Nigeria gained its independence? How do we solve the problems in Africa using a tech slant, which we know will be one of the main solutions to the problems? And these are the questions we should start thinking about. It's not just our generation now that is at stake, right? It's the next generation and the generations after. And I'm Nigerian, and the problem that I've seen in Nigeria is the problems never go away. And honing in on Timbo's friend's statement is true, and it's a typical African saying because that's the way we laugh at the problems. But could we actually take a step? Could it be this generation or in this time of the world that we actually come up with bespoke solutions for the problems in Africa using tech?
Yeah, thanks. For want of time, I would request Tombo if you can just give 1 minute final note.
Great. I think the most important message from me is that everyone needs to think AI first today. And if they don't, then they're going to be left behind. And it doesn't matter what type of business or government area you're in, AI will drive and is driving the future. And the opportunity is to think about it today. You don't need to be Access Bank or Prudential or even OK High to be thinking about it first. Whoever you are, you should be doing that. And it's amazing that we have companies like Google and Microsoft who are investing so much and giving access to tools for everyone to be able to use. And so I think the key thing is we want to make sure that you or we as a country are not left behind, and then think AI first and start planning and investing today.
Yeah, thanks. Mweke, could you please give your final comments?
Okay, so I think the history of humanity, society, and technology is exponential, and it keeps on moving very fast. And when we look at this from a lens of innovation, it's very important for us to begin, like I mentioned again, to ask where we want to be. Do we want to keep on following, or do we want to, create our own path? And as we look at innovation, we need to look out for or ask the questions of what problems are we solving, and what problems are we solving tied to technologies like AI, quantum computing, robotics, and the rest. In our being able to do that, I have no doubt that we'll come up with lots of solutions which the world is going to come and partake for us with. The last word I have, and I think somebody mentioned it here, is Africa specific. When we are looking at innovations, let's also look at what works for us. Let's also look at what works for us with the context of where we are. Invest in R&D, and things will begin to
Okay, so sorry for that interruption. I hope we're back. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, Dr. Faye, could you please give your final comments?
For me, my final comments is will be related to exactly the incident that happened just 2 minutes back, this outage. For me, it makes me think about where we as Africans need really to invest to accelerate the adoption of all these great things we talked about. Clearly, we are far from what is happening in Europe and North America, right? For me, accelerating the stability, speed, and security of our internet connectivity is one of the key focus areas we need to do. The example of this outage here reminds me that aspect of the thinking. The second one is increasing governance that are coming around all these activities we talked about need some particular attention from us as leaders, as experts in this area, to make sure that the regulations that come with us together can really help us better drive all the initiatives and use cases we want to put on the table for our companies and our society in general to go to the next level. And that's the conclusion for me, really.
Yeah, thank you. Michael, please, could you please give your final thoughts?
In 1 minute.
Nothing else to say, but amen to all of the above. I couldn't possibly add anything else. It's many true things being said. Let's make them happen.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any question for the panelists from the audience.
I'm sure you guys covered everything.
I think there's
Well,
one.
there's one.
Yeah.
Well, he's a journalist, so.
Thank you. My name is Otto Abasebasekon from Web TV. My first question is to him from the ADC Microsoft. How do you see the DigiStuds initiative, and how do you hope to partner with them and support the FinTech DigiStuds initiative? And then the second question is to the OK person.
Okay, hi.
Okay, hi. NIPOST, Nigerian Postal Services, have come out with their innovation around the digital addressing system. So is he looking at partnering with them? Because addressing in Nigeria is really a challenge, and NIPOST is looking at that. And with him looking at launching that, is there an opportunity for collaboration to leverage the business? Thank you.
Thank you. So just to answer your question, yes, the African Development Center is very open to partnership and collaboration. Like I said earlier, that is one of our pillars, because we believe that we cannot go this journey alone. So we'd want to work with different organizations that align with our values and our vision. But again, towards creating products or expanding skilling from an engineering point of view, which is the crux of who we are and what we do. So yes, we are.
And from OK High side, it's a great question. We also definitely open to collaborating with NIPOST. The beauty of our technology is that we can enable address verification to happen at a larger scale than the current solution of having to physically send an agent to someone's house to verify an address. We did a pilot with Stanbic Bank, and we proved that we were 30% more accurate. We could do it 4 times faster and at half the cost. And what we are enabling, therefore, is the ability to verify addresses at scale. And when you have over 50 million unbanked adults in Nigeria who need to have verified addresses before they get access to financial services, we're really excited about bringing that technology and definitely scaling that through partners like NIPOST.
All right. Thank you very much to every single member of the panel: Romanus, Nkem, Timbo, Toju, Abdulrahman, Michael. Thank you all. Please a round of applause for them. Thank you. For the past 1 hour, they've shared a lot with us. So Nkem, Romanus, and Dr. Brima, please, photo session, or photo shoot, or photo ops, depending on what you're looking at. Either way, AI can solve those problems. All right. How was that session? Was it too techy? Many of you flowed, right? Well, it was too high tech. If you allow techies to talk when it comes to AI and machine learning and those, they don't stop. So this panel could have lasted for 3 hours. And there's so many use cases because actually, Africa is really, really a lot of opportunities. So yes, most of these technologies would apply to helping solve some of the challenges we face every day in Nigeria and the rest of Africa. So yeah, our next